The Monkey's Paw is a famous supernatural short story written by W. W. Jacobs and first published in 1902. The story is about a mysterious magical object, a dried monkey's paw, that can grant three wishes. But there's a terrible catch. Every wish comes with a painful and unexpected consequence. Because of this dark twist, the story has become one of the most famous horror tales in literature and is often seen as a warning about the dangers of trying to control fate. The story begins on a dark and stormy night inside the warm house of the White family. Mr. White and his son Herbert are playing a game of chess while Mrs. White sits near the fireplace knitting. The house feels safe and comfortable, but outside the weather is wild. Mr. White complains about the terrible storm and the lonely road where they live, wondering when their guest will finally arrive. Soon, their old friend Sergeant Major Morris arrives. He has just returned from many years of service aboard, especially in India. The family welcomes him warmly and offers him whiskey. As they sit together, Morris begins telling fascinating stories about his travels and adventures in distant lands. Mr. White becomes curious and says he would love to travel to India someday, but Morris quickly warns him that sometimes it is better to stay at home. During the conversation, Morris pulls out something strange from his pocket, a small, dried monkey's paw. The family is curious, so Morris explains its dark history. According to him, a mysterious fakir, a holy man of mystic, put a spell on the paw. The spell was meant to prove one lesson: people should not interfere with fate. The paw allows three different people to make three wishes each, but those wishes always come with terrible consequences. Morris explains that he himself already used his three wishes. Another man who had the paw before him used his final wish to ask for death. Because of these horrifying experiences, Morris says he wants nothing more to do with the object. In fact, he suddenly throws the paw into the fire, hoping to destroy it forever. But Mr. White quickly grabs it from the flames. Morris becomes serious and warns him repeatedly, "Leave it alone." He explains how to make a wish but strongly advises Mr. White not to use it. Despite the warnings, the mysterious object now fascinates the White family. Mrs. White laughs and says the story reminds her of magical tales from Arabian Nights. As a joke, she suggests wishing for extra hands to help with her housework. Morris doesn't laugh at the joke at all. Instead, he becomes uncomfortable and once again urges Mr. White to use common sense if he insists on making a wish. After dinner and more stories, Morris finally leaves. Herbert, the White's cheerful son, doesn't believe the story at all. He jokes that his father should wish to become an emperor, just so he doesn't have to listen to Mrs. White's nagging anymore. Everyone laughs and playfully chases each other around the room. But when the laughter settles, Mr. White begins thinking seriously about making a wish. He says he already has everything he wants, so he isn't sure what to wish for. Herbert then suggests something practical: £200, which would be enough to finish paying off the house. It sounds like a harmless wish, so Mr. White takes the monkey's paw in his hand and wishes for £200. Suddenly, he cries out in shock. He says that paw twisted in his hand like a snake. The family becomes uneasy, but soon they laugh it off and go to bed. Later that night, Herbert sits by the dying fire and briefly thinks he sees the shape of a monkey's face in the flames. Uncomfortable, he puts out the fire and goes to sleep. The next morning feels completely different. The sun is shining and the house looks cheerful again. The strange events from the night before now seem silly. Mrs. White laughs about the ridiculous story of the monkey's paw, saying that even if the wish were real, 200 pounds wouldn't hurt anyone. Herbert jokingly replies that it could be dangerous if the monkey suddenly fell from the sky onto his father's head. Everyone laughs again, and Herbert leaves for work. Later that day, something strange happens. Mrs. White notices a man standing outside their gate. He looks well dressed but nervous. He approaches the gate, turns away, then approaches again, 3 times, but finally entering the yard. Mrs. White invites him inside. The man introduces himself as a representative from Maw and Meggins, the company where Herbert works. His nervous behavior immediately worries the Whites. Mrs. White anxiously asks if Herbert is okay. The man says Herbert was hurt. Then he adds something chilling. He is in no pain. At first, Mrs. White feels relieved, but then the terrible truth hits her. Herbert feels no pain because he is dead. The representative explains that Herbert was caught in the factory machinery. The room falls silent. Mr. White slowly says that Herbert was their only son. The man awkwardly explains that the company accepts no responsibility for the accident. However, as a small gesture of sympathy, they will give the family 200 pounds. Exactly the amount Mr. White wished for. Mrs. White screams. Mr. White faints. Days pass after Herbert's funeral. The once warm house now feels empty and lifeless. The grieving parents struggle to continue their daily lives. Then, about a week later, something unexpected happens. Later at night, Mrs. White suddenly remembers the monkey's paw. In a burst of desperate hope, she rushes to her husband and tells him what they must do. There are still 2 wishes left. They can wish for Herbert to come back to life. Mr. White is horrified by the idea. He tries to convince her that Herbert's death has nothing to do with the wish, but Mrs. White refuses to listen. She becomes frantic and demands that he go downstairs and get the paw. Reluctantly, Mr. White retrieves it. With fear in his heart, he makes the second wish, that Herbert will return to life. Then they wait. The candle flickers and goes out. The house becomes silent. Then hear the ticking clock, the creak of the stairs, even the faint sound of a mouse. And then, knock. Someone is knocking at the door. Another knock follows, louder this time. Mrs. White suddenly realizes something terrifying. Herbert was buried 2 miles away in the graveyard. That means he would need time to walk back home. She runs toward the door, convinced her son had returned. Mr. White panics and begs her not to open it. He remembers how horribly Herbert's body was destroyed in the accident. But Mrs. White doesn't care. She just wants her son back. The knocking grows louder and more desperate. As she struggles to open the door, Mr. White desperately searches the floor for the monkey's paw. Finally, he finds it and makes the third and final wish. Suddenly, the knocking stops. Mrs. White opens the door. Outside, the dark road is completely empty, and the story ends with the chilling reminder: some things are better left to fate.